width years and depth years, a thunderstorm raging, dogs going crazy, trauma work, shadow work, more dogs going crazy, mental health, and moving forward into intentional living and magic. This is the video I'm trying to film at the moment, and the heavens are sending down rain and thunder and lightning as I'm trying to do it. I feel like I've fallen into chaos with this video. Okay, depth years and width years and acquisition and abuse and lack and balancing life and the shadow. I read this book this month, and it works with it talks about shadow work. And it's a very familiar path to a path that I've walked, recovering from trauma and abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder. Shadow work is similar. It's a similar path, and there are signposts on this path that I recognise, but it's not the same. And the difference between the two has got my mind in a flurry this month. So the similarities: trigger recognition, emotional literacy, state management, tracing triggers back to core wounds to heal. Similar places on different paths. But the difference is trauma work is not shadow work. With trauma work, you can't delve into your shadow because you don't even have a sense of self. When you're shaped by trauma, you don't know where your edges are. You don't know where you end and somebody else begins. How can you delve into a shadow when you haven't even got the concrete form there? If your concrete self is not there, you won't cast a shadow. That's the difference. My experience of trauma recovery, trauma work is understanding first your external environment, the people around you, the behaviours coming in at you, and being able to name the behaviours that surround you in the environment that have shaped you. Basically, it's like living with a tornado swirling around you. The bits of debris coming in and smacking you are the things that have formed you. There might be like a tractor there and a car there and a piece of broken wood there, and it forms your outline, but you aren't whole in your own right. So you need to be able to see the tornado and name it. You need to be able to spot the bits of debris that have come in and name them. You need to understand gaslighting. You need to understand repetition compulsion. You need to understand triangulation. You need to understand when somebody is using excessive words and word salad to confuse you. You need to understand that first to get a sense of self, and then you need to put boundaries around it before you can even start to heal. You can't do shadow work until you have boundaries for your own self. Boundary work to form the outline of who you are, and then you go into trigger work, flashback work, tracing that back to core wounds. You have to get back to that core wound to heal. It's a difficult, dark path to walk, and the only way out is through. It does have similar benches to shadow work, but it isn't. It isn't shadow work. They are two different beasts. Trauma work can bring addiction in with it. I still struggle with food addictions. Overcoming dissociation and developing a sense of body and felt sense is also a massive part of trauma recovery. It's all different to shadow work. You have to get your body present first before you can even begin to think about shadow. I keep coming back to this idea that unless you have a physical presence and a physical body, you can't cast a shadow. So I think trauma work is creating the body. Shadow work is then delving into it. So this book took me on this similar path that made me start thinking about the work that I've done over 6 hard years of recovery. And it made me start to think about where I want to go next and why I'm still stuck in places, why my clothes are still getting snagged, why I still keep being pulled backwards. And it made me question, do I need more trauma work? Do I need to delve into the shadow work? Which one is it? To do trauma work gets you to a joyous point eventually. You develop boundaries, a sense of who you are. You become a person in your own right rather than somebody else's punch bag or emotional toy. You start to find self-esteem, you start to value yourself again, you start to develop your own dreams and goals. And for me, that path of recovery at 50 led me into my first ever width year, which turned out to be a width 6 months. So by a width year, I mean the opposite of a depth year, which is where you're acquiring things, you're saying yes to stuff, you're putting your priorities up high, you're soaking in the glorious scent of selfishness for the first time ever. And I've done that for 6 months and I've loved it. And I have acquired decks and oracles and books and things to study. It's been glorious. I bought things for my altars. I've given myself an art studio by changing the house around. For birthday and Christmas last November and December, I filled that art studio up with the paints for the first time and papers, and decided to learn to paint and to do watercolours, and I've got oil paints as well in there. So my space changed, my spiritual path changed. I embraced tarot, I embraced witchcraft, I embraced the fact that animal energies and goddess energies have always come to me. I embraced it all and declared to the world, this is who I am. But a shift has been whispering in my ear. There are whispers coming in that this book just made me stop and listen to a bit harder. And those whispers make me stop and look around the house at decks that I haven't even opened. Or if I have opened them, it's just once and then they've gone on the shelf. It's making me look at rune study groups I've joined that I've never participated in, and bags of crystal runes that I still haven't spent 1 second studying, and decks that I bought to go with it that when I open them up, they've still got the paper on. Those whispers have made me look at beautiful tarot decks that need lots of time to study that I haven't given them. Those whispers have made me look at old books that I feel I need to reread, and new books of shadow and trauma work that are still to be done. They've made me look at workbooks that are still half empty. And not just workbooks, books everywhere. Books about goddesses that I want to read. Books about magic from other places. Books about the paths of witchcraft and ritual and magic making that are still sat unread. New paths of healing modalities that I haven't even begun to study yet that are calling me and saying there's blocked energy somewhere. There's blocked energy, and the width year proved to you you are important, but now you need to get still. And this week, when I opened the Wisdom Seekers Oracle and got all confused with numbers, I immediately panicked and thought, something else to learn. And I raced onto Amazon and I ordered the Spanish Tarot, a Marseille deck. I ordered Thoth. I ordered the Book of Thoth, I ordered a Marseille book, and they came in, and I caught myself thinking, stop. All of a sudden the width year doesn't feel like it did 2 months ago. The width year feels like I'm running away, and I know what running away feels like. I ran away for years with dissociation and keeping myself in a protective bubble and hiding, and the width year now feels like that. It was glorious and it was needed, and I have a house full of things now that are all about me and my passions and my loves and my goals, and now it's time to use them. So I've decided to start a depth year, because I'm being pulled into this depth year with healing as a huge part of it. I want to do it with shadow work. My depth year is about embracing all of the promise that the width year offered. Stop my width year turning into a new form of denial. Give me space to stop spinning and start breathing, and to ask myself, what's next? The journey's been hard and I've come a long way, and I've got so many wonderful things to share with you from the last 6 months. I mean, I think I can still be sharing box openings and book reviews for forever. So I will still be delighting in all of that on here. But alongside all of that, I want to do a new playlist called Deep in the Shadows, because I want to go deep for the next year. And I know it's not the start of a new year, but I'm starting it now. I'm declaring it now. So I want to go deep, but I want to drag the shadows with me. The wonderful Kellyanne Maddox has got some wonderful shadow work videos on her channel. And she has got one where she's walking on the beach and she talks about gathering all the broken pieces of yourself in shadow work, and she describes them as, I think it's lost children she describes them as, and I loved that. And this week I discovered a lost child. I had a trigger reaction to an event, and I journaled and I journaled and I journaled it, and I kept pushing that event open by saying, but why, Candy? Why do you feel like that? But why? But why? But why? Over and over, until I dismantled that trigger to pieces. And inside it, I found a lost child, part of myself that was lost in shadow. And I went into the art studio to talk to her and to reclaim her and to bring her home. And I've started drawing her, and she's called Mimi. Mimi Controlly Pants is her full name, and she works out of fear. And me and Mimi this week have been having many varied discussions in the art studio. This isn't the only artwork I'm doing with her, but this is the main drawing of her. And I feel like I know her now, I understand her. She will come and chat to me now, and she is fully coming home to me. And I love this idea of using my creativity and my art, which is everything that fires me up, to do this shadow work. And I wanted to share it. I wanted to try and find techniques and tools to share with you. I wanted to revisit what trauma work is and share that with you. I want to, over the next year, really get to understand what shadow work is and share that with you, and the differences between shadow and trauma work. I wanted to share my depth year with you as well, and to let you guys know how that impacts my mental health. And I wanted to share the fact that at 51, when you feel like you're starting over and that you've only just met yourself, that's okay, because I know that I'm not the only 51-year-old, 50-plus woman out there that feels like she's just coming home to herself, whether that's because of a path of trauma like I've walked, or abuse, whether that's just because you've been caught up busy in motherhood, whether that's because at 50 you're beginning to let go of some of the crap of society. Whatever reason we find ourselves meeting ourselves for the first time, feeling a need to delve a bit deeper, to stop and pause and become present. I feel like we're all in it together, and I just really wanted to share it. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a mental health professional, I'm just a 51-year-old woman that's walked a long, dark path of abuse and trauma, has spent 6 years doing trauma work, and is now ready to start doing shadow work. As an artist, I can share some of my creative ways of integrating this shadow and what that means. And hopefully the goal is to end up with a life where I'm living intentionally. I'm not being buffeted around by the tornado anymore, and I'm bringing my own magic in. If any of that is successful, or if any of that resonates, or even if I fail but it teaches somebody something, then I can't do this and not share it. So I'm going to start a new playlist. I'm going to call it Deep in the Shadows, because it's a depth year where I'm going deep. I'm stopping the acquisitions and the width. I'm going to stop running. I'm going deep. I'm going to sit with everything. I'm going to share more of my artwork, and I'm going to share this process with you, alongside joyously sharing all the things that you haven't seen yet from my width year, because that was important too. So I'm not damning anybody in a width year, because I needed to sit in that width year, but once it started to change for me, I needed to listen to those whispers. So that's it, guys. It would be lovely if any of you wanted to watch. I know it's different from the tarot content, but it's important content for me to share. I often think on this channel, what have I got to bring to the table? And I think this trauma recovery knowledge is a huge thing I've got to bring. Also my creativity. So this is a way of combining it, and it's something that I feel really called to do. So I hope that's something that some of you will be interested in. There'll be other content as well alongside it. But that's it for now, guys. I'm declaring on, is it the 17th of August, in this crazy year of 2020, the start of a depth year, and I can feel the pressure lifting off my shoulders as I do that. So thank you for watching, guys. This only took me about 20 times to refilm, because I couldn't say it as I wanted to say it, so I hope it's made sense, and I will see you again next time. Bye, guys.